There's a conversation that happens constantly between people who are retired and people who aren't. And the thing that always strikes me about it is the gap, the enormous, consistent, almost comical gap between what the non-retired person assumes retirement is going to feel like and what the retired person says it actually feels like. The non-retired person imagines finally having enough money, enough time, enough security. And they picture that feeling as the end of a long list of anxieties. The job stress, the status competition, the constant calculation of whether they're doing well enough, earning enough, impressing the right people.
What they don't realize is that the list doesn't get shorter in retirement. The list just gets different. A lot of the things that consumed their mental energy for decades, things they assumed were permanent features of adult life, quietly disappear. Not because they became a different person, but because retirement removed the structures that made those things matter. Today, we're going through 10 of them, and I'll warn you now, some of them are going to make you rethink what you're actually working so hard for right now.
My name is Eric, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, retirement psychology, and the gap between how people expect their financial life to feel and how it actually does. If you want to understand what genuinely changes when you finally reach financial freedom, subscribe and give this a thumbs up. Let's go through all 10. Number 1, what other people think of their career. For most of working life, your career is one of the primary lenses through which other people evaluate you, and through which you evaluate yourself. What do you do? Where do you work? What's your title? These questions carry enormous social weight when you're in the middle of a career.
Getting the promotion, earning the respect of peers, being seen as successful by your professional network. These things consume real mental and emotional energy for decades. Retired people report that this concern evaporates almost immediately. Not gradually, immediately. The question, what do you do, stops being an identity question the moment you stop doing it. And what most retirees describe is not loss, but relief. The exhausting performance of professional status simply ends. And the freedom that comes from no longer needing your job title to define your self-worth is one of the most consistently reported positive surprises of retirement.
Number 2, keeping up with the neighbors. This one connects directly to what we've covered on this channel about stealth wealth and the psychology of status spending. The comparison treadmill. The constant low-level awareness of what your peers are driving, where they're vacationing, what their house looks like, whether you're visibly keeping pace, is a major consumer of financial and mental resources during working years. The stealthy wealthy's cardinal rule is to conceal their fortune rather than flaunt it. And interestingly, retirement tends to naturally produce that orientation in people who never consciously adopted it before. When you're no longer embedded in a professional peer group with visible status markers, the comparison pressure dissipates. Retirees consistently report caring far less about what their house looks like relative to the neighbors, what car they drive, or whether their lifestyle appears impressive. The audience for the performance has left the building. Number 3, being busy for busyness' sake. Working culture in America treats busyness as a proxy for importance. The packed calendar, the back-to-back meetings, the "I've been absolutely slammed" response to "how are you?" All of it signals that you matter, that your time is valuable, that you're in demand. It's a form of status performance that most working Americans participate in without consciously choosing to. Retirement removes the structural incentive for that performance entirely. Retirement is no longer a destination you arrive at on a fixed date. It's a transition you design and a phase you manage. And one of the first things retirees design out of their lives is manufactured busyness. The sudden freedom to say, I don't have anything scheduled today, without that feeling representing failure or laziness, is something retirees describe as one of the most disorienting and ultimately liberating changes of the transition. Time stops being something you manage for other people and becomes something you spend entirely for yourself. Number 4, the Monday morning dread. This one needs almost no explanation for anyone currently working. The specific low-grade anxiety that starts building Sunday afternoon, the mental inventory of everything waiting on your desk tomorrow, the meeting you're dreading, the email you haven't responded to yet, the project that's behind schedule. Nearly half of retirees said they retired earlier than they planned, and surveys consistently show that one of the most immediate positive effects reported is the complete disappearance of this Sunday anxiety. It doesn't fade over weeks. It's gone. The retirees who describe it say it's almost shocking how completely it vanishes once the work structure is removed. What they discover is that the dread wasn't really about any specific job or any specific Monday. It was about the structure itself. And when the structure ends, so does the dread.
Number 5. Proving themselves financially. During working years, financial life carries a strong competitive and performative dimension, especially for people in their 30s and 40s. Am I saving enough compared to my peers? Is my 401k balance where it should be? Am I on track? These questions are shaped not just by internal goals, but by a constant ambient awareness of where other people seem to be financially.
Around 58% of workers believe they will outlive their savings, a fear that generates enormous anxiety during working years. But here's what's interesting. Gallup's consistent finding that 82% of retirees say they have enough to live comfortably suggests that for most people, this fear dramatically exceeds the reality. Once retirees are actually in retirement, actually living on what they saved, the need to prove financial adequacy relative to some external benchmark simply stops. They know their numbers. They live inside them. The comparison anxiety that haunted them for decades turns out to have been largely about uncertainty, not actual insufficiency.
Number 6. The perfect financial plan. Here's one that will resonate with anyone who has spent significant mental energy trying to optimize their retirement plan down to the last decimal point. Retirees consistently report that once they're actually in retirement, the obsessive optimization mindset softens significantly.
72% of Americans expect to retire on their own terms, but the planning process to get there can become its own source of anxiety, a never-ending search for the perfect sequence, the ideal withdrawal rate, the optimal Social Security claiming age. What retirees report, almost universally, is that the plan you actually execute is always messier than the plan you designed on paper, and that it works anyway. The flexibility and adaptability that real retired life requires turns out to be more manageable than the pre-retirement planning anxiety suggested. The perfect plan mattered less than the habit of planning.
Number 7. Other people's opinions about how they spend their time. This is one of the most underrated freedoms of retirement, and it connects directly to what the research says about retirement satisfaction. The working years carry an implicit social contract about how time should be spent, productive, purposeful, justifiable to the people around you. Taking a Tuesday afternoon to read in the garden feels vaguely irresponsible when you're 38. It feels like exactly what life is for when you're 67. Only 11% of retirees are emotionally ready to stop working when they financially retire. But the ones who do make the transition consistently describe a gradual realization that the guilt around unproductive time was entirely externally imposed, not internally generated. Once the external structure is gone, the guilt goes with it. Retirees stop explaining and justifying how they spend their days. They simply spend them.
Number 8. Climbing the ladder. The career ladder is so embedded in working life culture that most people don't consciously choose to climb it. They just absorb the assumption that climbing is what you're supposed to be doing. The next title, the next level of responsibility, the next salary band. Progress defined entirely by vertical movement within a structure someone else built. Retirement ends this so completely that retirees often struggle to explain to still working people what the absence of it feels like. There is no next rung. And what most people discover, sometimes slowly, sometimes immediately, is that the ladder was never the point. The ladder was the vehicle.
And once you've arrived at financial independence, the vehicle becomes optional. Retirees stop caring about climbing, not because they gave up, but because they finished. Number 9. Accumulating things. More than half of Americans, 56%, say they'd prefer to leave a financial legacy to loved ones or causes they care about, rather than accumulate things for themselves. And this preference, which shows up strongly in retirement research, reflects something that retirees report experiencing viscerally. The appetite for acquisition simply diminishes.
The house is already furnished. The wardrobe is already full.
the garage already has what it needs. And after decades of accumulation, many retirees describe a growing preference for subtraction over addition, getting rid of things, simplifying, creating space rather than filling it. The energy that went into acquiring and maintaining possessions gets redirected toward experiences and relationships. Uncertainty about the future of Social Security is the major concern for retirees, meaning the things they do worry about are structural and meaningful, not material. The stuff stops mattering. The people and the time start mattering more.
Number 10. Whether they made the right financial choices. This one is the most psychologically interesting finding across all the retirement research, and it's the one most likely to challenge something you believe right now about your own financial anxiety. The overwhelming majority of retirees who are comfortable, not rich, not perfectly positioned, but managing, report that they spend very little mental energy second-guessing the financial decisions of their working years. The 401k contributions they made or didn't make, the house they bought or didn't buy, the investment they chose or missed, the salary they negotiated or didn't.
Retirement confidence declined for both workers and retirees in 2026, but retirees' confidence, even after the decline, sits at 73% versus workers' 61%. The people who are actually living it are more at peace with it than the people still dreading it, because retirement removes the hypothetical. You're no longer guessing whether you'll be okay. You either are or you're adjusting. And the data says 73% of people who are actually there feel okay about it. The financial regrets that consume working people's anxiety at 2 a.m., the choices unmade, the money misallocated, the timeline that didn't go as planned, largely dissolve when the unknown becomes known. The anxiety was mostly about the uncertainty, not the outcome.
Here's what I think all 10 of these have in common, and why they matter even if retirement is still decades away for you. Every single thing on this list is something that retirement removes by removing the structures that made it matter. The career competition, the professional status game, the busyness performance, the ladder climbing, the accumulation impulse, the Sunday dread. None of these are permanent features of human psychology. They're responses to specific environments. And when the environment changes, they go.
Which means right now, before retirement, the question worth sitting with isn't just, am I saving enough? It's, am I spending energy on things that retirement will reveal were never actually important? Because the retirees who are most satisfied are not the ones who optimized every financial variable. They're the ones who designed the transition thoughtfully, who managed retirement as a phase, not just a destination.
Only 4% of retirees say they're living the dream, but 73% say they're comfortable. And comfortable, it turns out, is significantly better than what most working people are experiencing right now while chasing something bigger. The things retirees stopped caring about aren't things they gave up. They're things that turned out not to matter as much as the working years made them seem. And knowing that now, while you still have time to redirect accordingly, that might be the most valuable financial insight on this entire list.